Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Three Pines. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this was kind of an interesting opening to the episode. We had that guy who at the time we believed his name was Arthur Mills, came in, was drunk, went up to Gabri, hit him with a single hit. He's flying off talking about he's going to reveal everyone's secrets. It seemed like his biggest issue was Gabri because that's the person he went up and punched, but it seems like he talked about everyone else. Like, it's like, oh, you guys know. And I guess whatever his issue is with Gabri, I think he's kind of implying maybe the rest of the town knows about his secret and they're protecting him, but maybe they don't. But I think it's that thing of, right, everyone in this town knows each other's secrets. You got your little clique. Like, we find out later on he's only been in Three Pines for like a couple days at most, and he ended up staying at the motel, or not the place that Angela owns. Like, he was staying there. What I thought was so interesting, and it seemed like Armand kind of glommed onto it too, because sadly they found him in the woods hanging. That whole hanged thing, the English language is so effing weird. I wonder, does that whole same issue of hung, like when someone was hanged, past and present tense, does that still pop up in other languages, or is that specifically just an English situation? Either way, it seems like it might be a suicide, but then it's like there's footprints, plus his hands are so clean, so there's no way he could have climbed up a tree. Because also it's like, yeah, there's nothing else around. Like, for typically in a situation like that, sadly, you would think there'd be something nearby from the stand on. There was nothing. So I guess the implication is like, oh, he climbed the tree, but it's like, no, his hands are too clean. The markings on his neck make it seem more like a straight up strangulation rather than just being hanged. But nevertheless, Angela, when they went to tell Angela about it, because Nicole was like, oh my god, he's dead. It's like, oh yeah, we found him in the woods hanged. And she's like, oh my god, suicide. And Armand almost was like, wait, what? Like, I mean, when someone's hanged, it makes sense why you'd immediately go to the conclusion of, oh, it was suicide. But I think for him, it's just like, yeah, but you didn't ask. You said it like you knew already. Which, I mean, I think that's why you didn't push it, because it's like, there's an implication of like, yeah. But also maybe it's because her reaction of her kind of taking it like, oh my god, I can't believe it's not someone she really knew. He was very private. He paid in cash, which not many people pay in cash, so that seemed a little suspicious too. I don't know. Her response and her, like, it felt like Armand kind of latched onto it too, but like I said, typically when you think of like a hanging situation, you assume like a suicide. It doesn't always come off to be murder, but the fact that she didn't ask any questions, like, oh my god, what happened? And then you're like, oh my god, like, did you think, what happened? Like, oh my god, like the fact is, her first instinct wasn't like, I guess, oh, someone did that to him, can't believe it. And they didn't really say anything about, we believe it was murder. Like, Armand made sure to keep that to himself, so they end up finding a suicide note, but Armand's like, nah, it doesn't make any sense. It's too clean. There's no distress in the way he wrote. But I look at his handwriting later on. They're like, it looks like it's the same guy's handwriting. Which they're like, oh, so he did write the suicide note. So they were like, was he forced to? My immediate thought was, well, we find out like the whole thing is about revenge. And it seems like that's kind of what this is about. Because at the book club, the next book, well, it's eerie what's going on, because the book they were currently reading was about justifiable murder, about getting revenge. It's like, hey, you need to go about, like, you were wronged and you need to get revenge. It seems like it's a revenge story. And the room was kind of split. It's mainly like Ruth, Olivier, and was it Mike and Clara that were all about, I think that might have been who was about, like, oh, like, revenge is okay, but, like, Peter wasn't too keen on it. It's like, well, it's understandable why Peter wouldn't be too keen on it. The fact of the matter is, he just had that whole murder situation, his sister got murdered and stuff, and it's like, I guess he's also a little more sympathetic, considering, like, well, his sister's murderer was kind of, like, the complicated circumstances he was in, so, it's like, it's your half-brother, so I think that maybe that changed Peter's tone. It still is weird coming back from your circumstances and having the morbid conversation about like, oh, like, Gabri, like, oh, the fact is you better be careful around Gabri. He's all about saying like, yeah, it's justifiable and stuff like that. And hey, Olivia, you might want to be careful. You know, he's the one that's got the sharp knives. It's like, don't worry, I got plenty of first aids in the house. Ha 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 ha. It's like, it's quite the morbid conversation to have. And Gabri got severely upset. Now, what was interesting is Olivia had talked to him earlier about like, right, I know you and that guy were arguing. What were you arguing about? And for Olivier, he's really offended by all this because it's like, right, there's no secrets between us and there's something here, which I'm assuming, and maybe this is on me, I think because we find out later on the guy, I forgot what his actual name is, but his name obviously isn't Arthur Mills. We'll get to that in a second, circle back. But they eventually... Isabel ended up at his place, and there was a whole bunch of stuff there. He was packing like he was going to leave, but there's stuff from like his wife and his child, but they're not there. The people who have been living there said like, oh, he's been living here alone for the past couple of years. So it's like, right, did they leave? But it's like, if they left, why is some of their stuff here? So as in like they left, there's like, oh, it was a divorce and she took the kid. I immediately go like, they got to be dead, and he's keeping their keepsakes. Like, he couldn't get rid of it, so that's what this is about. I think, my thinking is, Gabri was involved in a drunk driving accident, maybe. That seems like the most plausible for right now. Like, it seems like an accident or something. He survived, and this guy's wife and child died, and that's what he was all about. And it's just like, right, you got out, maybe he didn't serve any jail time, maybe he got off scot-free, maybe he was drunk driving and he tried to be like, nope, I wasn't drunk, and like, I don't know, because Gabri, like, making that whole point about like, oh yeah, sometimes revenge is necessary, it almost sounded like he was coming from the position of, I'm the person, I'm not the person that was wronged, I have wronged someone, and in particular this Arthur Mills guy. So that's what I'm immediately thinking, but we'll have to wait and see. It feels like that might fit the mold of what's going on there. But the other interesting aspect of it, like I said, was bringing up earlier about the books. It's like, right, that's one book they were working on. The next book they were working on, I was like, oh, that's a little, ugh. That the fact is, like, the next book is called, like, The Hanging or something like that. Turns out it's a biography book about Arthur Mills. Arthur Mills is a well-known executioner in Canada, apparently executed over 600 people. You're like, Jesus. And it's a family business. And I guess it's almost like that same aspect of, you know, when you have a firing squad, no one knows who had what bullet that ended up killing the person. So no one has to fully carry the guilt of knowing, like, they're the one that did it, right? So I guess that's supposed to be the equivalency of it. It's like, right, you get to have a pseudonym, and it was a pseudonym passed down in the family business. And he kind of had a great reputation until he messed up on his final execution, and he estimated the woman's weight wrong, and her head got clean. I mean, for me, I'm like, I guess because that type of death is super inhumane, I guess that's why, like, but also, like, I mean, I guess because that's the point. The point is with the hanging, it's supposed to be quick. You're not supposed, like, the rope is supposed to be estimated in its length based on your weight and stuff, so that when you fall, your neck snaps and it's instant. Like, you're not struggling. In her case, I don't know whether it's like she struggled for a while and then her neck, like, head popped off, or like it was just an instant thing of drop, plop, went off her head. So it was kind of disturbing and stuff like that. So I guess it's like, right, it was supposed to be like a no pain and humane way to die, and that's like far from humane. Maybe that's the justification. Either way, like, life fell apart after that for the guy. So the fact is that our would-be guy who committed suicide, for it to be a situation of he would take the name of an executioner, now it's implying, like, right, maybe he came here for revenge. And like it seemed like our mom was kind of on the same page. Of like, well, maybe he really did write the suicide note. My thought was he was coming here to kill whoever he killed, and he was going to kill himself. Once again, the stuff at his house was actually packed up, but it could be a thing of like, yeah, I'm not coming back here, so whoever, like, that way, I don't want to inconvenience anyone with my circumstances. So maybe it's also, I'm gonna get revenge, but I'm also gonna be reunited with my potential wife and child, who, like, I still think they sadly are gone, dead, but I don't know if it's going to be necessarily the drunk driving incident that I think it might be with Gabriel, but he is definitely involved. Interesting enough, Olivier ended up finding the guy's wallet in Gabriel's office. So I don't think he's involved in this, but there's something going on there. I just don't know. It might be like during the tussle he ended up dropping his wallet. It's a red herring. Like Gabriel had nothing to do with it, but I think Olivier is going to find out his secret next episode. I mean, I think we all will, obviously. So. But what's also interesting about this particular case as well is that it involves pines that were found near his body, and they're from white pine trees. And there's not that many in the area. And the pine situation made Armand start thinking like, whoa, let's conjoin this with Blue's situation, because at Tommy and Kevin's place, there was some pines found beneath the floorboards. Like, obviously it's going to happen from time to time, but it's like, okay, especially with older houses, get those, test them. Turns out they're white pine. So it's like, okay, so whoever killed Tommy and Blue potentially, or the person who shot them, had to have buried them. Obviously they know they've got to be somewhere in this area, because this particular area is nearby where Kevin and them were pulled over that night, over like a year ago. So they were all looking potentially in the wrong place, and now they were able to narrow down exactly where the pines were, and Armand is the one who discovered the bodies, and it is this heartbreaking thing. And even he says later on, like, yeah, this is how the story was always going to end. That's the horrendous aspect of it. Like, this story was never going to have a happy ending. It's, you know, because it's like, right, you can confirm it was one of your colleagues that did this, one or two fellow cops who did this, so that's why it's been buried for so long. They, once again, don't know who to trust in these situations, so they want to get justice for Arasawa and the family. And it's like, right, they can get the bullets analyzed and compared them to any guns that have been fired. So Armand has this done off the books. I already knew it. It's Arno, especially because Armand had a conversation with the early in episodes. Like, stop talking to this dude. I get it. He's your friend. He's so trusted. I was like, stop talking to this guy. You need to stop. I don't trust him. Like, once again, he's been Armand's main point of contact when it comes to investigating Blue. And I'm just like, I know he's involved. And lo and behold, the 2 bullets that killed Blue came from him. I was like, I knew it. I was actually kind of like, what was it? Did Daniel do? Was it the other cop? I thought, like, I was like, oh, it's probably not going to be him. It's all Arno, but it's like, it's both of them. The other guy killed Tommy. Arno's the one that killed Blue. Because the thing is, they looked into it. The guy who killed Tommy, he already had an issue where he shot an unarmed person. And so another, like, he probably is, as Armand was like, oh, so he's trigger happy. And basically ever since, like, this all kind of got brought to light, he's kind of disappeared. So it's like, right, someone might be helping him, or maybe he got wind of, well, now we know how he got so ahead of Armand, and then why they can't find him now. It's because of Arno. Now, the thing is, did Arno pop him and bury him somewhere, or just tell him to disappear? Why was he there, you know? Because he's also the one that told Armand, like, oh yeah, there was no one else in the car. I'm like, yeah, like I said, it's just, he's the one, like I said, been the direct point of contact with any evidence that's found its way to Armand. It was him. So that's why I was like, from the very beginning, I was like, I don't trust that guy. And I was right to feel that way. But for Armand, he feels so betrayed, because it's like, right, the person, like, maybe that's what some of his dreams have been trying to tell him, because there have been signs there. And obviously he was kind of like, you know, envisioning the pines, and obviously they ended up being such a key piece of evidence in this investigation in that regard. But why he's involved in all of this, what this was really all about, was it a situation that flew out of control because of the other cop, and Arno had no choice, like, well, can't leave any witness, pop, you know, why, what was this all about? And obviously it's like that thing, you know, I think it is that deep, well, it's self-preservation on Arno's part, but I think also it's just the Blue Veil situation in general, maybe. Once again, I think I might have brought that up. I don't remember if I cut it out of the video or one of the reviews, or whether that's still there, of the whole it might have still been in there. I don't remember. of the conversation of like, does the blue veil situation, is that just a U.S. thing or is that kind of an international thing? I am like in the U.S., so like I hear very U.S. centric news, and you hear about the blue veil situation, but I don't necessarily hear that as much internationally. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just I'm ignorant on like a lot of the policing internationally. I'm glad at the very least he didn't give the bullets to Arno, because he went through a private channel to do it, just because it's like, probably like, oh, I don't want to bother Arno about this. I got to connect, so I'll be the one to run the bullets. Oh, crap. Good thing you did that, because now you know, oh, Arno's a bad guy. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out now that you know. So, another aspect of this episode is actually kind of really heartbreaking and sad, is everything with John Gee. He was kind of away with Enid, his wife, and they were supposed to be trying to make things work. Now, when we cut back to it, but you knew something was up the moment he called Enid, but he immediately got her voicemail. And when he's talking to Armand, he's like, no, it's good. She's in the kitchen cooking this. And it's like, yeah, I'm thinking of going into work. And you see like the closet's empty. You're like, oh, she left. So the thing is, and the big question is, did they even go on their trip at all? Or has she been going? Because he went off for he left work for about a week. I think maybe the entire time he was trying to contact her, and it could be like either they went on a trip, things didn't work out, or they never went on a trip, and that was just a lie he told Armand to make it seem like hey, we're working out, everything's going to be okay, and she left like a week ago, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going stir crazy waiting around, and it doesn't seem like this is, and I need to focus on something else, so maybe he's like, oh, I'm coming to work soon, and so it's like, oh, I'm glad everything's working out, and it's just like, wow, that sucks a lot. That's what happened. It's like, it's a lot of depressing stuff in this episode, I mean, you have that, you have Arisawa and the family, and Blue's sister, like, breaking down like that about everything, understandably so. There was also kind of ending the episode on a little bit of a more, like, lighter note, but obviously Armand is, confiding in his wife again about, like, his dreams, and obviously, he ties this all back to, he remembers this nest of birds he found dead. It was like symbolic because like their mother had died, and it was like around the time his parents had died, and he's got this feeling of confusion that he's had similarly till back then. And it's like, and B even said this line to him in the episode where it's like, oh yeah, like it's all connected in one way or another. And obviously, that ended up being so true in the investigation of this episode, but his wife ended up bringing up this one time that she was like, oh, like, remember when you were at Cambridge and I was somewhere else and we'd spend the entire time. It was very expensive, like, calling each other, and we stay on the phone all night. And I was like, oh my God. I think I've talked about this plenty of times. I was in high school. I did the same thing. I was in a long distance relationship, and from 15 to 18, and that's what would happen sometimes. We'd get on the phone and we'd fall asleep to be on the phone because it's so comforting. I feel so like cringy and like stupid for it, but I'm also like, that's why I was like, oh, that's so sweet and endearing when they said it, because it was just like, it made me feel nostalgic about something like I did years and years ago. I just thought that was just the most interesting thing. It's like, yeah, it is a very comforting and soothing situation to fall asleep on the phone with someone. Even more so back then, because that was, like I said, especially around at 15, I didn't have a cell phone, so I'd steal my mom's cell phone and my father's cell phone. I don't know why I said father. My dad. That felt weird. My dad and my mom's cell phones just to talk to her sometimes, and I'd be on their phones for like hours at a time, specifically 4 hours at a time, because those phones would automatically hang up at exactly 4 hours. I remember that so vividly. Wow. Trip down memory lane. But I thought that was so sweet, and he was able to kind of finally rest, and I thought that's such a little beautiful little thing we get here and there, like their relationship. And once again, he had brought it up during the last case that his wife, he feels like he burdens her too much. Like, he relies on her, yes, but he feels like I kind of drag her down in that darkness with me. So I think it's a little poetic, and I think maybe it speaks volumes. Like, right, he's able to sleep comfortably, but then like what happened? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just her being like, all right, I'm gonna stay here. Like, make sure you're still asleep. But I think it was more so like her being awake. I don't know. I felt like that could be symbolic of like, oh, you get to rest easy because I'm kind of taking those burdens for you. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but Either way, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this case ends up taking us going forward in the next episode, where we get our conclusion to everything with the murder. But obviously, I'm sure we're going to take steps further in the situation with Blue, Tommy, and Kevin. But that's not going to get resolved until next week. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good